Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I've been dealing with hemophilia since I was diagnosed at age 12. It's not the most common thing for women to have, but hey, I won that genetic lottery. My parents were always super protective after the diagnosis, especially during that time of the month because that's when things get really complicated. Normal period pains are bad enough, but with hemophilia, everything gets amplified. Bigger blood clots, more intense pain, the whole package. Despite all this, I refused to let it control my life. I found ways to manage. Vicks Vapor Rub became my best friend. The strong menthol smell helps distract from the pain, and I always carry ibuprofen. I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons for about 2 years now, and it's become my favorite escape. Our dungeon master is this really understanding guy who runs amazing campaigns. So there I was, making my usual 45-minute walk to our weekly game. I started feeling the familiar twinge of pain about halfway there, but I wasn't too worried. I had my trusty Vicks, took some ibuprofen, and figured I'd power through it. By the time I reached the gaming store, though, things had escalated pretty quickly. I made it to our usual table, probably looking like death warmed over. The pain was coming in waves now, and I couldn't help but hunch over every few minutes, breathing like I was about to give birth. The dungeon master noticed my condition and asked if I was okay, mentioning that I looked pretty rough. Between controlled breaths, I told him it was just a monthly fee for being born a woman. That's when this guy at our table, let's call him Mr. Know-It-All, decided to share his unwanted opinion. He was relatively new to our group, having joined only a month ago. He was about my age, 20, but apparently lacking in both empathy and common sense. He had the audacity to suggest that my pain couldn't be that bad if I had managed to walk all the way there. I froze mid-breath. Maybe it was the pain, maybe it was years of dealing with people minimizing my condition, or maybe it was just the sheer audacity of this guy. But something in me snapped. I turned to face him, still clutching my Vicks inhaler. Staring directly at him, I launched into a detailed explanation of my pain. I described how he could never understand what I was going through, painting him a vivid picture of having a quarter-sized blood clot, larger than normal due to my hemophilia, being slowly pushed through a 1-centimeter hole between pelvic bones. I explained how my body contracts every few minutes trying to force it out, sending waves of pain through my entire lower body. I added that the worst part was never knowing how long it would last because it depended on the size of the clot. After taking another deep breath of Vicks, I continued my explanation. I told him that until he experienced this himself, he had no right to mock me for using whatever helped me deal with the pain, including sniffing Vicks like drugs and breathing like I was in labor, because that's exactly what it felt like. The whole table had gone silent. Mr. Know-It-All's face had turned pale, and he was staring at me with a mixture of horror and embarrassment. But I wasn't finished. I explained how I walked there because I refused to let my condition control my life, noting that I've been dealing with this since I was 12, and wouldn't let it keep me from doing things I enjoyed, even though it didn't make the pain any less intense. Another player, a woman at the table, spoke up in support. She admitted to having experienced bad periods before, but acknowledged she couldn't imagine dealing with that plus hemophilia, calling me badass for making it to the game. The dungeon master then stepped in, asking if I needed anything and offering to delay the start of the game if I needed a few minutes. I managed a small smile and told him I just needed to breathe through the current wave, though I wouldn't say no to some water. Without a word, Mr. Know-It-All got up and returned with a bottle of water from the store's cooler. He placed it in front of me, barely able to meet my eyes as he apologized, admitting he shouldn't have said anything and offering to pay for the water. I accepted his apology but advised him not to assume he knew everything about someone else's medical condition in the future. He nodded, thoroughly chastened. For the rest of the evening, he remained notably quiet, and whenever I needed to take a break to breathe through a particularly bad wave, he was the first to suggest pausing the game. Word must have spread through our local gaming community because the next week, the store had started keeping a heating pad behind the counter for emergencies. And Mr. Know-It-all? He never commented on anyone's medical issues again. In fact, I overheard him shutting down another player who was complaining about someone taking breaks for their anxiety attacks. You see, while I didn't enjoy having to explain my condition in such detail, at least it made a lasting impression. I'm a flight attendant with 7 years of experience, and I've seen my fair share of entitled passengers. But what happened last week on our New York to Los Angeles flight takes the cake. It was supposed to be a routine 6-hour flight. The first 2 hours went smoothly. We served drinks, handled a few minor requests, and everything was peaceful. That's until I heard what sounded like a wounded animal coming from row 24. I rushed over, thinking someone was having a medical emergency. Instead, I found a woman in her mid-30s absolutely losing it over the in-flight movie she was watching. Like, full-on ugly, crying, complete with mascara running down her face and hyperventilating. I asked her if she was all right and if she needed medical assistance. Through her sobs, she wailed about how the main character had just died in the movie. When I asked for clarification about who had died, she just cried harder and explained between sobs that the main character had sacrificed himself to save everyone else, and she thought it wasn't fair. Several passengers around her were starting to look really uncomfortable. The gentleman next to her had his noise-canceling headphones on and was pressed against the window, trying to get as far away from her as possible. A few minutes later, I got called over by 3 different passengers who politely complained about the noise. One of them was traveling with a baby who had woken up startled because of her outbursts. I decided to address the situation again. I tried reasoning with her, explaining that while I understood she was emotional about the movie, other passengers had complained about the noise level. I asked her politely to keep it down. She responded through more sobs that I didn't understand, claiming the movie meant everything to her and that she'd watched it 5 times already, with it affecting her the same way every time. I attempted to sympathize while maintaining my position about keeping the peace for other passengers. That's when she became aggressive, demanding to know if she wasn't allowed to have feelings. When I tried to explain that wasn't what I meant, she cut me off. That's when things went completely sideways. We had just served meals and her tray table still had her half-eaten pasta dish on it. In one swift motion, she grabbed the entire tray and hurled it at my face. Hot pasta sauce splattered all over my uniform, and bits of pasta went flying everywhere. The entire cabin went dead silent. Then came the collective gasps and shocked murmurs. The pasta sauce was dripping down my face and uniform, and I could feel bits of noodles stuck in my hair. The air marshal, who had been seated a few rows behind, immediately sprang into action. He was by my side in seconds. He told her that she was under arrest for assaulting a crew member and ordered her to stand up and put her hands behind her back. She started screaming that this was ridiculous, claiming I was discriminating against her emotional needs and demanding to speak to the captain. When the air marshal ordered her to stand up, she tried refusing, protesting that she had paid for the flight. The air marshal wasn't having any of it. He professionally got her to stand up and restrained her. We had to move her to a separate section of the plane for the remaining 3 hours of the flight, with the air marshal keeping watch. When we landed in Los Angeles, the police were already waiting at the gate. When they escorted her off the plane, she was still trying to defend herself, shouting to the other passengers that we were all discriminating against her and that she was just expressing her feelings. One of the passengers turned out to be a social media influencer with millions of followers. They had recorded the entire pasta throwing incident and posted it online. By the time I finished filing my report with the police, the video had already gone viral. The airline pressed charges for assault, and I later found out she was added to our no-fly list. She's currently facing federal charges for interfering with flight crew members, which carries a potential fine of up to $25,000 and the possibility of imprisonment. The viral video also cost her her job as a real estate agent after her company saw it trending online. All this drama because she couldn't handle a fictional character's death for the 6th time. I've had passengers cry during movies before. It's normal and totally fine. But throwing a tantrum and assaulting crew members, That's a one-way ticket to the no-fly list. The influencer who recorded everything sent me the video, which became crucial evidence in the case against her. They also started a fundraiser to replace my ruined uniform and treat our crew to a nice dinner. The support from the other passengers and the online community was overwhelming, and it really helped balance out the awfulness of the whole experience. I've been working at this retail company for about 6 years now, and I've always taken pride in being the person who keeps everything running smoothly. My role involves interacting with pretty much everyone in the company, from the warehouse staff to customer service and management. Over the years, I've helped implement quite a few changes that made things better for everyone, and management always appreciated my input. Well, at least until he showed up. About 3 months ago, this new investor came on board as a manager. Right from day one, you could tell this guy was going to be trouble. He spent his first week just observing us, walking around with this smug look on his face and taking notes on his tablet. After that week, he called a company-wide meeting. Now, usually our meetings were pretty open. We could discuss issues, suggest solutions, that kind of thing. But this one was different. He stood there in his expensive suit and basically gave us a 20-minute lecture about how things were going to change. I tried to bring up our recent turnover issue, but he immediately shut me down, stating that they would only ask for input if they wanted it. Period. The way he stared at me when he said that made it crystal clear who he was targeting. See, we'd been having this problem where people would quit after a few weeks. As someone who talked to everyone, I knew exactly why. They were being hired for customer service positions, but spending 90% of their time packing orders in our sweltering warehouse. Before this guy showed up, I mentioned this to management. I told them about the last 3 people who quit, explaining how they felt misled about the job since they signed up for customer service work, not warehouse duties. The old manager thanked me and said they'd look into it. But after the new manager came in, they called me into a private meeting. He accused me of implying they were being deceitful in their hiring practices. I defended myself, explaining that I was just relaying what the departing employees had said. That's when he laid down his new rules. He made it crystal clear that unless I was asking about my specific duties, they didn't want to hear anything from me. No opinions, no suggestions, and definitely no gossip about what others were saying. He emphasized that I should just do my job. Fine. Message received. I decided to do exactly what they asked, keep my mouth shut, and just watch things unfold. 2 more people quit in the next month. Same reason. Then this new guy started about 5 weeks ago. Unlike the others who just quietly quit, this guy got angrier every day. I would often overhear him complaining to coworkers about how ridiculous it was that he applied to be a customer service rep but ended up as a warehouse worker. The other workers would just agree, noting they were all in the same boat. I heard these conversations but remembered the new manager's words. No gossip, no input. So I kept quiet. Then came the day everything exploded. Literally. I was at my desk when I heard crashing sounds from the warehouse. I went to check and found the new guy having a complete meltdown. He was grabbing packages worth thousands of dollars and throwing them around like confetti. Some of our most expensive items, $2,000 pieces of equipment, were being smashed against walls. The new manager came running down, shouting to know what was going on. After they fired the guy and cleaned up the mess, the manager approached me. He asked if I knew the employee had been unhappy. I simply said yes. When he demanded to know why I hadn't told them, I reminded him about our previous conversation, how he had accused me of calling them deceitful and told me to stop gossiping when I last reported similar complaints. I quoted his exact words about only wanting input when they asked for it. His face turned so red I thought he might explode too. He accused me of being petty and taking things too literally. I simply responded that I was following his exact instructions. I'm the one who handles inventory adjustments. And when I was updating the system, I couldn't help but smile seeing the total damage. $10,000 worth of merchandise destroyed. The new manager had to explain that to the company owners, along with why he ignored multiple warnings about employee dissatisfaction. The owners weren't too happy about his management style. They're reviewing his position now, and suddenly, He's very interested in employee feedback. Funny how that works, isn't it? I, 29-year-old female, never thought I'd be writing this, but I need to get this off my chest. I met my fiancé, 32-year-old male, 3 years ago at a local coffee shop where I was working as a barista while finishing my master's degree in education. He'd come in every morning for his coffee, and we'd chat about everything under the sun. One thing led to another, and soon we were dating. He proposed a year into our relationship, and it was perfect. Not just because of how he did it, a surprise picnic at the spot where we had our first date, but because of the ring. It wasn't just any ring. It was his grandmother's engagement ring, a beautiful vintage piece with a story behind it. His older brother, 38 male, had been the original keeper of the ring, as he was the eldest. When my fiancé told him he wanted to propose to me, his brother was incredibly supportive. He said since he wasn't planning on getting married or having kids, the ring should be used by someone who would appreciate its history. I was touched by this gesture and the trust they placed in me. Fast forward to now. Everything was perfect until his brother met his girlfriend, 34 female, about a year ago. Don't get me wrong, she seemed nice at first. They got serious quickly, and a few months ago, they announced they were expecting a baby girl. That's when everything changed. During our most recent Sunday dinner at my future mother-in-law's house, his brother's girlfriend brought up the topic of the grandmother's ring. When I asked what she meant, she explained that since they were having a girl, she thought the ring should go to their daughter, emphasizing that she would be the great-granddaughter. My fiancé immediately stepped in, reminding them that they'd already discussed this with his brother and the ring would stay where it was. The girlfriend then made a pointed comment about blood family, clearly implying I wasn't really family. My fiancé defended our position, stating that the ring was given to him specifically for his future wife. His brother looked uncomfortable throughout this exchange and weakly suggested they might work something out. But my future mother-in-law stepped in, saying the ring was given to my fiancé with his brother's blessing, and that decision was final. The girlfriend then turned to my fiancé's brother, trying to guilt him by asking if he was really going to let their daughter miss out on her heritage just because of a hasty decision he made before meeting her. I reminded her that the ring was given with full consent and that her issue was with her boyfriend, not us. Getting visibly upset, she then tried to compromise by asking us to put it in our will for their daughter. I had to explain that the ring would actually go to our future children. This really set her off. She stood up, called us selfish, and kept emphasizing how their daughter was actual blood family. My future mother-in-law had to put her foot down, declaring that the ring belonged to us now, and the discussion was over. The girlfriend stormed out, shouting about how the family didn't care about actual blood relatives. What she didn't know was that after she left, my future mother-in-law revealed her own mother's ring, an even more valuable family heirloom. She explained that while she'd been saving it for her first great-grandchild, after witnessing such entitled behavior, she was giving it to me instead. My fiancé asked if she was sure about her decision. She confirmed absolutely, explaining that she wanted the ring to go to someone who truly understood that family meant love and respect, not just blood. The brother's girlfriend returned just in time to hear this announcement. When she tried to protest, my future mother-in-law shut her down completely. She delivered a firm lecture about how family isn't about blood or entitlement, but about love, respect, and understanding, qualities she suggested the girlfriend needed to learn. The brother's girlfriend remained silent for the rest of dinner. They left early, and I heard through my fiancé that she's been pressuring his brother to fight for their daughter's rights to both rings now. But his brother, having witnessed her behavior, is actually starting to reconsider their relationship altogether. I now have 2 beautiful family rings. But more importantly, I have the support of a family that values love over blood. And that's worth more than any piece of jewelry. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.